Roll for Crit is made possible thanks to the support of viewers like you and our patrons on our Patreon page.
You can become a patron for just $1 a month at patreon.com/rollforcrit.
In this Kickstarter preview, we're taking a look at Sons of Faeriell. In this world of Ferial, you play as the Waybits, who have come to this land and are living there one with nature. As you can see from this great land, there are different types of territories and biomes, including mountains, waterways, forests, and plains. There are also giant animal guardians that will roam around the world, and for the most part, you're all pretty happy with each other. However, a corruption has taken hold in the land. It's now up to you and your tribe alone in order to set things straight.
Yes, you will be competing with other tribes to make great achievements to overcome that corruption, or possibly become corrupted yourself as things may go. This game has 3 phases to it, and each of those phases has its own unique set of possible actions that you can or must take during them, and each player on their turn will choose one of those 3 phases and carry it out. So every player could choose a different phase or the same phase in different orders. It's up to you how and when you want to do things. I'm going to start by explaining what is called the tribe phase. During this one, you're going to be able to purchase new upgrades, new abilities using essences. Essences are these cards of different colors. Each one is associated with one of those terrain types on the board, and on the back it has a picture of one of the area guardians on the board, but we'll talk about exactly what that means later on. For the most part, during this phase, you're using these as resources to spend to get new powers and such. So the first thing that you can get is a new hero. Everyone will begin the game with one of these heroes in play, but you can get up to 3 of them, and each one has a mask. You get to decide which color mask they're wearing. That color will determine some of their specialties on the board later on, and you can place new ones later on so you can do more things with them in a different phase. In the final version of this game, you'll actually have little mask minis that will go on top of these meeples, so it's going to look really cool and thematic. We just have the non-final versions shown off for you right here. Another thing you can do with those heroes is level them up. They have their own tiles that are going to go next to your board, and as I said, you're going to be able to use those for actions later on in the game, but if you want them to have more options to do things, you can purchase perk tiles, and you can add those perks next to that hero, and they will have a certain cost, and it will cost more for each perk that you have, so it's going to be more expensive to continue leveling them up. And those perks have all kinds of different abilities. They may give you extra actions, they may enhance some of your existing actions, give you things you can do with those essences later on. You're gonna want those because it's going to also let them travel further as well. You can also pay to build a settlement. Again, you're going to start with some of these on the board at the beginning of the game, but if you want, you can spend one of a certain color for each settlement you have. So again, it's going to get more and more expensive to place one of these settlements somewhere next to one of your existing ones, or where you have a hero somewhere on the board. Settlements are important. You'll be able to use those to gain more resources, and they're going to help you with the harvest wheel, which is something we'll talk about later. Down at the bottom of the board, there are some tokens known as the beacons and the spiritual totem, and you can also pay a price to take control of one of these. Beacons and the spiritual totem will help you clear the board of menace, which are these tokens that will hurt you and maybe stop you from getting resources so easily. The spiritual totem is also very important because it can get you an achievement, and other players can take it from you, although it's going to cost them a little more each time someone new takes control of it. Then there are some cards that you can get during this phase. There are the heirloom herbs, and those have, again, all number of different effects. They may allow you to put down different terrain tokens. If you put some of these down, it will actually add different terrain types. So some areas on the board, some regions, I should say, could have multiple terrain types. They could be a forest and a water, for example. And then there are the attunement cards. There's one of these in each of the Great Guardians areas, and they all have similar effects. Some of them may also allow you to place those terrain tokens. Some of them may help you gain achievements. They'll also allow you to move your heroes around within that Guardian's area later on in a different phase.
Now, the tribe phase has a lot of different things you can do, but all of those actions are going to require some essence cards for you to pay with. So, in order to get those cards, you're going to have to do the other 2 phases. First off, we have the event phase. This starts off with you actually using those back of the cards. If you recall earlier, we mentioned how they have the guardian animals on the back. You may choose to reveal one of them in order to move that animal around. Then you're going to draw from this little bag of tokens. This is where you can get menace tokens as well as corruption tokens, which are usually attached to a specific creature. If you get a menace token, you simply tuck it under the creature that you see on there, and it pretty much means that that area is going to be in threat and won't be really generating as many resources. But if you draw one of these corruption tokens, you will trigger a corruption event. This is not the only way that can happen. This is really the thing you're going to have to keep an eye on, because this is what triggers losing. You see, there's a doom track up here, and we'll go a little bit later about it, but if this hits 15, it's game over. And that's not that great, so you don't want to let corruption and doom take over this world. After drawing a token and hopefully being able to continue the game, you will now have a chance to actually get rid of some of that menace. Remember the spirit totem and the beacons we talked about earlier? Well, if they're paired up correctly in the animal with a certain menace, they can remove them, which helps towards an end game goal and also make sure that you can keep getting resources. Speaking of getting resources, the final step of this involves this wheel. Now, on your board, depending on the number of settlements you built, you'll have a number here, and that's the number you can move this little token around. So, for example, at the beginning, you can only move it from 1 to 3 spaces. If it lands on a terrain type symbol here, that pretty much means each player chooses a village that's in that kind of terrain type if they have one, and generates a card of that resource. If it's on an animal space, it's in each area that animal looks over. So if you're the only one in snake, that's probably pretty good for you, because it's a little bit harder to try to see if someone's not in a water or mountain area. Finally, we have the heroes, who are going to also be running around the board, making sure too many bad things aren't happening. Now, depending on their level, that could affect how strong certain actions are, but more or less, they usually have 2 action crystals that they can do for actions. First off, they can move. They can move up to their level. They can also solve a menace themselves, once again, matching the color as long as they're next to that guardian beast. Then there's quests. This is another way for you to earn essences. You will take a card matching the hero's color. So for example, if I chose to have this green hero gain a card, I would take this green essence and put it on my board. I can only set a certain number of quests depending on my heroes as well. I secretly look at the back, seeing what animal is there. Then my goal is to get that hero to that animal. Once I do so, I can add that card to my collection and spend it later for more actions. In addition, of course, depending on how you've been playing, you may get certain one of those attunements or some of those perks that may give some extra free actions or additional changes to the board depending on what you've decided to purchase.
All these different things that you're running around the board trying to do during the game are going to relate to your achievements. So whether it's solving quests or getting more settlements in different terrain types or trying to get rid of that corruption or those menace tokens that are going around, almost everything is going to tie in to one or more of those achievements up top. Usually if you have the most of something, if you have the highest level hero, for example, or if you have the most settlements in the mountain type of terrain, you will be eligible for that achievement. Usually there is a minimum requirement, so you can't just get one at the start and automatically have it because no one else has something yet. You have to have, for instance, at least 4 quests solved if you want to have the most quests achievement. Once you have it, you take one of the cubes off your player board, you put it onto that space, and you'll also have to pay a cost depending on which color was underneath the cube you removed. Actually, you don't have to pay that cost, but if you choose not to or you can't, then the Doom track will advance 1 space. And as we said, if Doom hits 15, then the game ends and everybody loses. Normally, the game will end if somebody gets 5 achievements, then you play until the end of that round, and whoever has the most achievements at the end of that round is the winner. Now, there is another way to win, which relates back to that Doom track. You see, there's a corruption track in the corner of the board. Everyone starts out on that at the purity level, 0 corruption. But as the game goes on, certain actions, certain events, such as the corruption events that may take place, will cause you to gain more corruption. And if a player hits the final space on that track, they become corrupted. They take this special corruption sower tile and mask and replace one of their heroes with that one. Even has its own set of perks. And now you are actively playing against the rest of the group. Now your goal is to get that doom track to hit 15. So you want to corrupt the land of Ferial. You're a total bad guy, and that's it. The other players could try to band against you, and you can even win cooperatively if everybody stays pure and has the same number of achievements. That's also an option in this game. So there's a lot of different ways that you can win. There's a lot of things going on. We will talk a little bit more about our impressions of it, but if you want a really full rundown of all the rules and how they all work, we also did a how to play for this that we'll link in the description so you can get even more in-depth information from that.
Yeah, this is one of those games where there's a lot going on and there's like 100 things you can do and you have time to do 4. And I think that makes sense looking at the achievements. There are a lot of different achievements for you to fight over, and they're not one and done. You can lose those achievements if you go below the goal or if someone beats you on it. So you're always going to have to keep an eye out there and seeing what other people are doing on the board. And with this board, it's very interesting because it feels like many of the actions sort of feed into each other. Getting more cards means you can upgrade more heroes, means you can run around to do more clearings, which means you get more cards. And it sort of just is this, you try to work on this weird, it's I guess it's like engine building, but it doesn't feel the same as simply just buying the cards that help each other.
Yeah, certainly your heroes, the way that you level them up, that definitely has an aspect of engine building. They'll eventually get more abilities, more actions, and if you have more of some of those attunements or herb cards, that also kind of will give you more stuff to do on your turn, as well as, of course, heavy resource gathering. That's a big part of it, and a little bit of board control, pandemic style, like clear this stuff from this area because it's getting too hectic. So even if you're playing competitively, you might sometimes have to work together to clear stuff out just because it's going to be tough for people to get things done.
Also, if you're not clearing things out, that's more likely that the Doom Tracker is going to start advancing more. And it's very interesting because I can only think of one other game on top of my head, which is actually, technically it's a video game called Dokapon Kingdom, where if someone was sort of behind a lot, it gave them the ability to become this evil version for a little while. This is sort of the same thing. If you get too far ahead, someone's win condition might be like, well, Jonathan already has 3 achievements done. Maybe I should go evil because that Doom track's already at 10. And right. I really like that because that really brings this weird game balance of being like, you have to decide, like, is it worth it for me to up the Doom track and let other people worry about it? Because then they might take advantage and go evil. But if you go evil, then everyone's probably going to gang up on you in terms of doing things to you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also an interesting dynamic with that harvest wheel we talked about where you're keeping an eye on where is everyone putting their settlement, and do you want to focus all in on one specific guardian's area so that it's really profitable for you? Or do you want to try to spread your influence around all over the place so that no matter what, if someone triggers the wheel, you're going to get some reward for it? So even though, there's no combat in the game, there's no trading or any real direct interaction, you definitely have to be wary of what other players are doing, which achievements are they going for, how are they planning to win? And that's another thing you got to decide. Do you try to go for the same achievements as them to block them out, or separate ones so that you have less competition? There are a ton of those achievements, and there's a lot of variety in exactly how you can get them. So if you're looking for a game where there's not just one way to win, this is absolutely that game. You can really decide, I really want to do these quests. I'm getting good quest cards that are easy for me to do. I'm going to go for that. Or, I'm going to take control of the spiritual totem, or I'm just going to try to level up all my heroes. And probably you'll want to mix and match and do a little of everything. I mean, you're going to have to because you do need 5 of them at least. But there are many, many options and different paths that you can take. So definitely no player's strategy is ever going to be the same.
Are you looking to save the world of Ferial? You can check out the Kickstarter right now. We'll have a link right down below. Or maybe you decide you want to be corrupted and win by yourself. That's cool too. Just don't forget to tell us in the comments so we know how you're going to play.
Yeah, we'll try to avoid you corruptors out there. You're not invited to our game
Or
nights.
Maybe we're the corruptors.
Oh, yeah, that's scary to think about. Check it out on Kickstarter right now, Sons of Faeriell. This has been our preview. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this is Roll for Crit. Here's an idea. Support our Patreon or like and subscribe to this channel for more.
Fagulu Miktawa audio expansion Wakana Cthulhu awesome.